Hello, everyone. Welcome to my talk show, Principles of Leadership. After our graduation, we all have a dream to become leader in our domain. I and my team at SHA Data University, we help young graduates and professionals to become leader in database technology. Now, every domain, the leadership demands certain principles. So, to know more about the principles of leadership, let me call my today's guest, Brian, who started his journey as a business development manager, and right now he is a CEO of Super Manager app. So, good evening, Brian.
Good
Rather,
evening.
good afternoon. You are from
Exactly.
Denmark. Yeah.
In Denmark, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I know it's
Okay.
much later for you.
How are you?
Oh, great, great. And thanks a lot for having me. I'm so happy to be able to discuss this thing about leadership because it's such an important element of all of our lives, not only our corporate lives, but also our private lives. Everyone knows how it feels to have a bad manager or a manager that's not working out, how much it affects you on personal levels. So, whatever we can do, I'm so happy to be here to discuss this with you.
Okay. Since you are here, can you just share us like what the journey of becoming a CEO of Super Manager, the
Yeah.
leadership?
Of course, of course. So, just to explain a little bit about my background, I'm originally from Goa in India, but this is generations ago. But my great grandparents went to Kenya, and I was born in Kenya, and we came to Denmark, which explains my accent. My genes are very Indian for sure. Now, the thing is that I've been blessed because we being in Denmark we have a pretty good education system. So I went through the education system, but also already when I was in the starting college, I kind of remember having this thought about what I would like my career to look like. And I kind of realized already at that point that if I wanted to progress in my career, there were certain things that I needed to be better at. And it was stuff. It was simple stuff like being on time, you know, dress properly, speak properly, be prepared for meetings. And I kind of thought, hey, you know what? Maybe I can use university to kind of get ready for a managerial role afterwards. Because everyone knows that. I mean, if you want to progress in your career, you don't have to be a manager, but many times being a manager gives you opportunity. Yeah, not only commercial opportunity, but also growth opportunities. And
Right.
there's just elements that you get around that. So I spent my university kind of making sure that I understood the principles of management, what it means to lead people. So I finished college. I started applying for different jobs, and I specifically went after jobs where it had manager in the title. Now, my first managerial title did not have any reports, but it still was a manager title because I kind of had the feeling that if I chose that, then it would have the right path. So I went in. I started as a business development manager for Kenya and Uganda. The fact that I was born in Kenya helped me in the process, obviously. Also,
Right.
I did some work in Uganda during when I was in the 11th and 12th grade. I did some work in Uganda for some time, so it kind of gave me that kind of feel. I think as a person, one of the things that I learned when I was a business development manager is that you kind of look at the other managers in the company and you kind of get inspired about how they work, but also you learn how not to do things.
Right.
I think that that's also one of the most important parts. But one of the
Yes.
things that I've actually never really had is that I've never really had a structured managerial training. I've never had that training. I've had courses like workshops and stuff like that. So I think a lot of the learning that I've had have been on the job. So what happened is that I worked and I got promoted. I got a managerial position with reports after a very very short time. I went into the consulting business, which was a lot of fun. Um, One of the things that happened is that the first couple of companies I was in were very entrepreneurial, startup ish, less structured companies, and I thought that if I was to really grow my career, I needed to get more disciplined. I needed to
Right.
go into an even more structured approach. So as a person, I'm not that structured. I'm very impulse driven. So if I feel like doing something, I will do it, which is not always good for business because sometimes you need to be really structured to hit your goal. You need to put in the work to hit your goal. And I kind of sensed that that was a problem. So I have a million ideas, I can do a lot of stuff, but if you want to execute on it, you have to be structured. So what happened was that I got the opportunity to join this extremely structured medical company called Radiometer. And what I really liked about that company is that it was everything that I was not. It had full of managers that knew how to structure things, and I thought either this is going to be the best thing I've ever done in my career, or it's going to be the worst thing because I didn't know how to if I would fit in there. But after some time, I really got that structured approach. Started working on stuff, but also started looking at what other managers did and how they said, how they portrayed themselves, and I actually found out some of the things is very much in perception. It's not even in what the background you have or how smart you are or what kind of education you have and all of these things. It's very much how you portray yourself as a person at the workplace. Yeah. So all of that comes from my education. It comes from my experience and all of that. But it's a lot more than that when you actually go into a job. So I kind of try to replicate some of the best managers I could see with some of the stuff that they did. So, for example, how do they motivate? How do they delegate? How do they, actively promote the company, not only in sales terms, but represent the company? Because I kind of thought that if I show the company I can represent the company, they would trust me, and this is where it ended. So I got promoted a couple of times. I loved my time there. I was there for almost 10 years, and it was just a great experience. Then I had the opportunity to join Lego. So Lego being the biggest toy manufacturer in the world,
Yeah.
being Danish, getting the opportunity to work for Lego is kind of like, I'm sure in India you have some companies that kind of push the needle every single time, and it would be great.
Right.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe Google is not Indian, but the whole thing about Google. If people get a job offer from Google, it gives the extra dimension, yeah. And this is what Lego does for people also worldwide, but specifically me as a Dane. So I spent some time there, and I really enjoyed myself. But actually, since my first job. Except the first couple of months, I've had reports reporting to me. I think the biggest team I've ever had was like 200 people or something like that.
Okay,
So
great, man.
yeah, so it was which and also several hierarchies in the layers. But I tell you, Sanjay, one of the things that I've learned, and this is kind of what I really like people to understand is that when I think about myself as a manager, I quickly found out that I can't just copy everyone else's way of leading. It's just not possible. So
No.
what I found the strongest was build my toolbox of really great stuff and then spice it up with my personality. Yeah. So as a person, I'm not very aggressive. Yeah. I'm not. So I'm very aggressive when I have to reach targets, but as a person, I'm not very aggressive.
Yeah,
Um,
that should be a manager be. Like every time if
exactly.
you be an aggressive, then nobody is going to hear you or nobody is going to bother you.
That's exactly right. But some people are aggressive and they put it into their managerial ways of leading, and it can be positive, but they just need to be aware of it. So this thing about bringing in your personality and making sure that your toolbox is ready, and then building that on your. So, for example, I can much easier motivate people with the way that I am as a person, but what I'm aware of as a person as well is that when at the end of the day and things need to be done, I need to be able to dial up on my the way that I say things and I do things and I run the structure. So where I'm already strong, I make that stronger. Where I'm weak, I intentionally go in and try to build that side of me.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Because what I've seen is that many people that go into become managers, they take like Warren Buffett or a Gary Vaynerchuk or Simon Sinek or someone else that is very big on talking about management stuff, and they try to replicate them. What they're missing here is that I really strongly believe that authentic management is really the strongest way of leading people. That you're not leading them to you're leading them because you want to and you want them to succeed, compared to you leading them to push them to the limit so you reach a certain target. And I think that as a person, if you bring that in, then that can really help. So I've done that, and then what happened is that I started up my own consultancy company some years, 5 years ago, and I sold it just before COVID. And now I've started up Super Manager with all the managerial experience I have. I found out that um, if we can give back to people, just make them 5 or 10% better, we could kind of change the world with management, because every decision that you take, every corporate decision you take, really means a lot to this world. I mean, you can take
Right.
so many decisions that are not the right ones based on your toolbox not being good enough. And many new managers don't have the experience, but if they have the toolbox and the education, they can use that to kind of balance out the lack of experience, and they can use tools like ours, super manager, or an elder, more experienced manager as a mentor, to make sure that they take the right decision. So this is kind of what we're doing now and enjoying it. We currently have 55,000 users on our platform, and
Great.
I encourage everyone just to go and check it out, because supermanager.app is a free way for you to get a lot of learning from people that tried it all before.
So, what is your suggestions to professionals who are right now they're becoming or would be become a manager? So, how they can change their attitude and action so that they could develop the managerial skill, and what are the basically what are the principles that they should follow to become a leader or a
Sure,
manager?
sure. I think the most important process is to take your growth in steps as a manager. Yeah. Because if you don't do that, you're going to go directly into situational management and all kind of elements that you're not ready for. Okay, and your people and the company will realize this, that you're not ready. So as I said before, I mean, what I experienced is that there are some key principles to follow in the beginning. For example, this thing about personal skills. Personal skills are really important. The first thing I would do is try to read as much theory. Use your time at university to build that in terms of teams. I don't think necessarily that you can when you're done with university, there's no one that's fully ready for being a manager. Actually, even 10 years after, you can ask the question if they're fully ready. But what they can do is that they can follow the processes. So, for example, there are pitfalls where you're not seen as a manager in your company. So, like
Right.
stuff like I said before, be on time, be prepared. You're not going to be the expert in all areas, but try to find a certain expertise. Be that data management, be that whatever it is that you want to be an
Yeah.
expert in. Try to be 0.05% better than everyone else in the room every single time you go for a meeting. Be aware that you're not going to be the best person in everything. Don't try to be the best person in everything. But specifically for that company or that field that you're working in, just try to be those percentages better. And it's not a lot that you need to do. You just need to spend time preparing yourself for every meeting and make sure you voice your opinions in the meetings, because it's through your opinions people understand how you think, how you feel, how you can lead a process, and you build trust that way. Be reflective in these meetings, and it's all about preparation. Now, what the problem is in many companies is that they have a very bad corporate culture of doing back-to-back meetings. Yeah, so it means that between meetings, it's very difficult to prepare yourself. Yeah, so what I would do is I would be very selective if you can with what meetings you take, and then just make sure you ace those meetings. And it's very much in the interaction between you and your colleagues and you and your manager that will determine for you to take the step. So these are very core critical parts that may sound like ridiculous, but even with my level of experience, and the companies I've been in, I've seen about 50 to 60% of all managers, they fail at the basics. They just don't know how to do these basics. They've never been trained. They've never realized that. They never reflected on this. So this is some stuff you can do. Once your toolbox is ready, so you build your toolbox with specific things like
Right.
technical knowledge, take the courses that you need. Um, if you don't, if you're an introvert, for example, if you're an introvert, try to figure out how you can be an introvert and still stay true to your person, but how you can still shine at meetings. So if you're an introvert and you're very, very thorough with data, for example, or numbers or whatever it is, make that your field where you can shine. So if people ask you and you voice your opinion, this is what you're good at. Okay. I think many people think that managers need to be great at a lot of things, and they do, but they don't need to be great at them to begin with. You need to be able to take that next step. So there's other stuff like being able to communicate with other people. Yeah, just being able to speak to them, explain things so they understand it, and turn on the lights in your eyes. I sometimes when I speak about leadership, I sometimes say um, you can kill the best sentences by not having the light in your eyes. Yeah,
Right.
people, make sure people understand what you're saying and want to listen to what you're saying. And also make sure that they want to come back for more. So you have something to give them. And if it's not the most brilliant ideas or something like that, then give them energy. Yeah, give them energy. Make them want to work with you. This is the best part. Once you've built that toolbox of stuff, you will quickly position yourself as a manager. Now, in some cultures, dress is very important. Yeah, I think COVID has changed a lot of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
now people are a lot more casual
Right.
about how
Right.
they dress. But in some cultures, it's good to make sure that you look the part. Um, I think in Europe, at least not in Scandinavia, it's less of an issue because top leaders, they wear jumpsuits to work, and it makes no
Yeah.
difference. Yeah, it's all about. But in some other cultures, it means more. So be aware of that. That's it. And then also, um, since you just probably just started your first job, make sure you learn from others. Go and talk to people, and also don't try to sound like a know-it-all. No one wants you to know everything when you started. Be aware of your level, so you don't end up being in discussions where it's over your head. But just make sure people know your level, and then grow in that part. Because what I've also seen as a manager, the people that I promote the most are people that are growing. When
Yeah.
I see that they started at this stage and now they're here, wow, that's fantastic. This is a person that can grow into this role. Okay. But a person that goes in and tries to look like he knows everything or she knows everything, and I find pitfalls in their explanations or their numbers or whatever it is. I would rather people just stay at their level, but then show me the potential of more. So going back, the toolbox, and then a very clear idea about how you can bring yourself into becoming a manager. Don't try to copy someone that you're not. I
Right.
normally explain it this way. Um, if you're into football, you know who Messi is. Messi doesn't sit down and study the best goalkeepers in the world, yeah, to become the best goalkeeper. He looks at what he's good at and where he's great, and then he makes that better. Yeah. So
Right.
if you are good at something, like if you're a people's person, make sure you dial up on that. Make sure you dial up on that because that's really going to help you. But if you're a people's person, maybe you're not so good at financial management, for example, or I don't know, whatever area there needs to be, then go and dial up on that. But just make sure that where you're really great, you are even greater. That will really make a difference in terms of your career.
That's what we also teach our means our professionals and graduates. Like you become a master of one technology or one domain. You don't have to be jack of all trades and master of none. This
No,
doesn't work right now.
totally, totally. And also,
Okay.
Sanjay, I think I experienced a lot that the best managers, they hire people around them
Right.
that are better than them in the topics, and then they get better and better at leading. Yeah, that they don't go in and dictate or try to compete with their employees in their skill sets, but the understanding, the umbrella understanding, will give them a big way or expertise to be able to lead other people. So I agree with you. I mean, this is what I think as well, is that a jack of all trades. Um, for
And
some
master of
companies it could be needed, but in general it would be better to show your expertise in one
right.
area.
Yes, that is the better thing. And as a manager, one more thing, one more principle that you have to follow is you have to motivate your team members.
I agree. I totally agree. This is kind of where the biggest problem I've seen when you look at leadership. Getting your team to perform is the single most difficult area of management, because there's also cultural ways of handling it. There's
Right.
all kind of ways of looking into it. But how do you get a person to be at their best? This is the question most people are asking, and COVID has kind of changed some of that, because body language is incredibly important when you're leading. And now we're sitting here on an online tool, and many managers have spent a couple of years now managing that team from afar, which means that people
Virtual,
are
yeah.
working from home, and yeah, virtually, exactly. And it's changed a little bit of that. But the fact is that what I the way that I always practice it is that I try to look at it, and handle my employees as if I'm working for them and not the other way. Yeah. So I tell them that I'm working for them, because I think this thing about creating ownership of your tasks is the
Right.
way to make sure that I can motivate, which is great, but it's never going to be as great as self motivation. Yeah. If I'm being asked by a task to do a task, I will do it and I'll gladly do it. But if I want to finish that task, it'll be so much better. I'll do it
Right.
so much faster, and I'll put in my passion. I'll go the extra mile. I'll do everything. So I think this is one of the small tips that really makes a difference for me, with my personality, is that I make sure that people understand why the task is important, both for the company, but also for me personally, but also for them. And then I try to build, their passion of finishing the task, but also the details of the task. Also,
Right.
what I do is I try to explain them how I see a leadership and how I want people to work. So one of the first things I explain them is that, um, in the army, one of the most, it feels like torture for soldiers if you tell them to run in one direction without telling them exactly where they're going or how far they're going to run. Yeah, it feels like torture. The brain just cannot,
Right.
understand that,
Understand.
because it's just so you're looking for answers, looking for answers, but why, but how long, and when are we home, and when are we you're looking for answers instead of actually focusing on what you've been told to do.
Right.
Yeah. So this is one of the principles that are really important. tell them how long that they're running for, tell them which direction they're going into. If they have to run for 42 kilometers, like a marathon, ask them to check in after 21 kilometers. Don't ask them to, and make sure that they understand that, because ultimately that means that you expect them to go to halfway before they're getting
Any
before they
breaking
check
even?
back. And it's not, if something happens or they need help, they can always come back to you, obviously, but just telling them that that's what you expect is absolutely critical. Now, I've worked with employees all over the world, and this is also how you train your employees. I'm so happy you're saying that these are your principles too, because it's easier for people to understand that. But many people go out and they get managers that micromanage. They tell them every single day what they should do, and they give them long lists of what they should do, and they go and check every single box to make sure they've done it. What happens then is that that person will not grow, and while the person may get good results, the retention rate of the person being in that company for a long time will not be there. They will just leave. They will not grow, and they're doing a big disfavor to the company by running that way of doing management. So I think also in terms of the current situation, this is also why we started Supermanager.app, is that we're trying to change that kind of mindset and say, um, when you want to make them run 42 kilometers, make sure that they feel a pride of being part of what they're doing, a pride of being better and growing as a person by doing this thing, instead of someone dictates them that they should do. And also, this next generation is different than our generation.
Right,
It
exactly.
just is. I mean, they every single generation says the next generation are spoiled and they don't want to work, and it's just a normal thing. But this specific generation that's coming out now are born with a mobile phone in their hand. They're born with automation. They're born with AI. They're born with robotics. They're born with a lot
Right,
of ways to handle standardized work, where we were just learning that in our career, which means that it's a different way that you need to start leading this next generation. Actually, that reminds me of a topic as well, is that the tools that you put in your toolbox, um, they're not the tool that you learned 20 years ago. You need to
right,
you need you
exactly.
need you need as a manager to put
Yes,
new tools in your toolbox all along. Otherwise,
yes,
you will lose your audience. They will just not know what to do. I mean, I have a good example. So my team likes to work with some these online collaboration tools like Monday, for example, or one of these tools. And they so I we just hired a couple of new guys, and they said, yeah, but we used to use this tool. This is what makes us efficient. And as a manager, I could say, yeah, but I'm not ready to use that tool because I don't know it. Um, or I could say, okay, let me check it out and figure out if we can use this tool in our company, because if I can put this in my toolbox, the next people that come on board, they probably use this kind of process as well,
right,
and we can build on that. So this is what I mean. Putting new tools in your toolbox means that you have to do that constantly. But where the major issue is that most managers only get training when they become a manager. It's like a doctor only learning about anatomy once they already been a doctor. Yeah,
right,
it's counterproductive for the process. Or a mechanic understanding how to put oil in a car after he's got his certificate of becoming a mechanic. Yeah, it's
right, right,
dangerous, and it's not optimal. So what we say is that even if your manager or your company or whatever restrictions there are for you to not get managerial training at where you are in your first jobs, make it your own personal goal to improve yourself.
right.
Because this will make a mass difference. And as 95% of your peers are not going to do it, you just gave yourself a much higher chance of getting into a managerial pathway in your career.
Great, great. So, and yeah, like we have answered all the queries. Hope this will help young generation and the professionals who are would be managers, would be leaders of coming days. So thank you, Brian, for your time. We'll connect again
Yes. Thanks a lot
later.
for having me.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.